right. Self-reflection and leadership exploration presentation by Nick Bachicha. Let's go. So, traits of an effective leader. Um, so this presentation is going to have a particular focus on group leadership qualities and different aspects of it. And I thought it'd be helpful at just out of the gate to break it down into our personal characteristics and then our professional ones. Now, the personal ones are more of the innate traits within the individual person and the personality that we can kind of draw from and use in order to help the group, whereas the professional ones are more of like those skill sets that we can kind of develop. And not to say you can't develop different personal characteristics, but the professional ones are these major tenets that we as a field kind of agreed that go into having effective group healing and group therapy success, right? So I kind of want to just break those up a little bit as we move forward here. So when you're dealing with like the personal attributes of your group leader, Corey had this top bullet point, and I love all these. So your presence, being able to like leave everything at the door and just show up in session. I won't go through all these because it'd take too long, but you have your personal power, your courage, your willingness to change, evolve, adapt, the sense of self, sincerity, authenticity, stamina, commitment to self-care, enthusiasm, and belief in the group process. Woo! And so I agree with a lot of those, and I just kind of put my thoughts on the bottom here of all the things that I think a good group leader would have, the kind of characteristics and traits they would have, and I darkened the ones that I really liked. So I had integrity. I mean, I like them all, but integrity seems to be paramount for me. Growth and learning and accountability, especially when you make mistakes and you're wrong. You have to be able to own that. Being creative, being able to adapt. Self-awareness to me is key. That's kind of where everything begins and ends. Without that, I mean, you're kind of just shooting in the dark. Having curiosity, being able to understand and connect with others, to bring people together, to inspire. And I think what underlies most of everything for me especially is this feeling of caring. Like I think some aspects or of jobs you can have people that are just like good at their job and they don't care, like like Dr. House from the TV show that ran for 8 seasons or whatever it was. But yeah, he's just always people lie. But I think when you're dealing with people, especially in the very vulnerable state that happens in like a group therapy, you need to be able to look at somebody, and that's where kind of a person-centered comes from, just this innate unconditional regard for somebody. It's pretty hard to fake if you can at all, so I think that was really really big for me. Oh, and so from the book, there's also Scovel and Jennings, in their book Master Therapist, had these really good foundational parts of that go into, and this is kind of like a bridge between the personality and the professional, I found. But I really love this: the ability to enter someone's world without losing your sense of self, a drive to master yet never arrive, to create safety both physically and emotionally while challenging others in the group. And there's that same accept feedback without becoming destabilized, and there's some other good ones in there. But these are like just the parts of the person that I think would be conducive to good group therapy. Now we get to the professional skills. And these are more of the ones that are like the competence ones that we can kind of measure just by doing like a chart. It's like, okay, did you do this well? Do this well? So I think first and foremost, having a clarity and a knowledge and understanding about what groups are and the formation of them is paramount. So what kind of group are you going to form? Is it going to be open? Is it going to be closed? What's the duration of it? What's the population you're trying to treat? What's the disorder here? The age range. Do you know the stages of group therapy? This is the formation stage. Here's our orientation, the transition, the working, right? Now we're at the termination, and what was the word they used? Consolidation stage, right? And so, like, just having that awareness of the structure of like normal groups helps you be able to go off and make your own, changes as you need. But I think that's first and foremost. You also need those basic counseling skills, and then the understanding of the group principles that kind of go in with the different stages of each of those groups. And so just based on these basic counseling, I know I kind of overlap some of the skills, but I think and there's a lot of overlap when you're just dealing with basic counseling in group session. But there's an extra sonic layer that's kind of around, which is you need to be able to use those skills to help cultivate trust within the whole system, right? And you do that by modeling, but not only that, but helping to establish the group norms, to create a sense of shared responsibility, personal accountability, and then being able to set personal and group goal setting. I'll get to that later. And the book really focused on the use of self-disclosure. I'm not too, I guess I should have thought about this too before I started speaking. I'm not too comfortable with self-disclosure yet, and maybe it's because I'm still so fresh and I'm still in internship, so I'm not really, even, temporarily licensed right now. So yeah, I probably need to work on that a little bit, and I'll get to those points later. But and I think another part of just understanding not just group principles is understanding what your group or what your orientation towards group is, right? So if you're an experiential therapist, don't be trying to do some cognitive behavioral stuff out of the gate, or trying to go into a psychoanalytic approach when that's not really what your gear is. So know what you're trying to do and operate within your boundary of competence. And then that last point here is super important. It is the cultural competence and the awareness of who's in your group and what sorts of perspectives and viewpoints are not only around in your society, but are right there sitting across from you. Because if you let those go unignored, you have differences of gender, differences of race, ethnicity, culture, like those can cause extra damage, and people can be misunderstood because they have different ways of seeing the world and speaking, and different values and meanings behind some of those words and actions, right? So you can be offending somebody without even knowing it, right? And so I think using the group as the microcosm of this larger can become a healing experience if you use it in the right way. But if you ignore it, you're just going to treat, if nothing else, you're reinforcing the same stereotypes that kind of made the problem happen, and so you probably make it worse. So some of the skills that just go into that, my unique quality. So I'm an INFP, which is the mediator, and that's the Myers-Briggs kind of dissection of it. But if we did like the big five, the ocean model, I'm high in openness and agreeableness, I'm low in neuroticism and conscientiousness, and I'm an introvert. Um, and so just kind of like free flowing, I kind of wrote some of the things that I feel about myself. So I feel like I'm kind-hearted, I'm creative, I'm really curious, I'm driven. I think I'm smart, but also I think that's tied to my drivenness. Like I have a hunger to keep pushing and to keep learning. And of course that could probably, be slowed down to a degree with my own personal therapy. But I'm also observant. Let's get back on track, Nick. Very empathetic and understanding, passionate. I'm very welcoming. That comes from my history of being unwelcomed in a lot of places growing up. I was a chubby kid, and I was a pincushion for a lot of the popular ones. So there's a little countertransference thing that I got to be aware of. I'm playful. I'm authentic. See, I am authentic. I'm resilient, and I'm very caring. And so part of the thing I'll get to later was I have a history of being pretty conflict avoidant and very appeasing to others. Not only my friendships, not only to strangers, but like romantic relationships and even with my family. So those are going to be really important to be aware of as I'm pushing the group towards their best selves, making sure I'm not enabling them or limiting them or even harming them. My group leadership style and orientation. So I'm pretty open and I'm laid back, and I can really adapt to kind of whatever the group needs or where it wants to go. So I feel like I'm like a Swiss Army knife in that aspect, and I really resonate with I said psychodynamic here because I don't like the term psychoanalytic. I just feel like there's too much Freudian like baggage that comes with it. So, but using that interpersonal approach, kind of like Yalom, would be really would resonate with me, and I really think especially since if I help establish the group norms, the group expectations, uh, and create a feeling of safety and get the free ideas and to be happening in group, I do think that some of their roles that they kind of played in their life, especially early on, would start to be recreated. And based on that, how the group forms, we can kind of draw attention to different parts of it and kind of use the here and now to be a good healing experience. But of course, like from that approach, we have to monitor resistances. And again, as I mentioned, my countertransferences or the group's transference. So it's huge to be skilled in your own self-awareness and also your own internal values and biases. And then those are some of the skills that kind of psycho dynamic approach would use there too. My style of confrontation is same kind of like I would be a leader, kind of a collaborative and empathetic one, especially when I'm bringing things to attention. And excuse me, there wasn't a lot of like types, I guess, of confrontation in the readings, but some of the ones that kind of ring a bell, is just when people say one thing, but their body's doing a different thing, right? So they're saying like it doesn't matter to them, but their feet are like moving really fast, or their arms are clenched, or the other one is when like they say they have certain value, but they're acting out in a different way, like the behavior doesn't match it. So when I notice those types, I think the one I use a lot of Adlerian kind of things, being like, oh well, could this be something you're doing, or could it be this, or also like the softer approach of like, well, on one hand you're doing this, and then on the other hand I see that. Help me make sense of that, right? And pushing it to them to allow that little cognitive dissonance and awareness to kind of sprout and allow them to kind of make their own interpretation from that. But of course, if they don't have an interpretation, I'll offer interpretation if they don't really have one. And maybe even like, and this is the other part that I'll get to later, which is being able to help allow the group to feel like they can jump into some of those things too. And and as a group leader, you have to monitor that to make sure what they're doing is not actually destructive. But just to be able to allow the group to kind of help each other and police each other, and so you can, based on that, you can get some really unique, different ideas that you wouldn't have come up with otherwise. So challenging aspects, since I have a history of non-confrontation, which I've gotten better at just based on my internship and working with individuals and being able to bring it up after we've established a connection and a trust, therapeutic bond and relationship. I still think like in a group setting it might be a little tricky, especially like if they have like a negative reaction. Just being able to monitor that and to lead us to a resolution where everyone doesn't feel like the tension in the room anymore. And I think also because I'm so easygoing, I think if a strong personality enters the room, even if like I try to account for it beforehand, you can't account for every single part when you're forming groups. You don't. You just don't know like how people are going to show up sometimes. And so like if a strong personality starts to direct the group or challenge the group or hurt a vulnerable person, it's your job to step in. So it's just going to be important to being able to work on that and not be afraid to set the boundary and to back it up to make sure everyone's safe in the group, both physically and emotionally. And these other two that I put down here, so I guess self-disclosure could be a fourth one I can put on there, just being able to know like what types of self-disclosure would be the best. And and I know the general rule is like if it's for the best interest of the group and it's not being used for your own catharsis, then it's probably okay. But again, I'm still not even graduated yet, so I think I'm going to be really what's the word, trepid, very what's the word, timid, not timid, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm not thinking of the word, but very, I'm gonna treat it with a lot of respect if I do use self-disclosure until I'm more comfortable with it, whatever word that is. Oh my goodness. Yeah, and these other two aren't ones that really like alarm me, but just ones that I'm curious about and I think I could use more development on. So when it comes to group goal setting, I know everybody coming in is going to have their own individual goals, but something I haven't really had to come in contact with is how do you get all those goals together and then in the here and now start leading towards a group identity, which it comes up next, and then also like a group goal, right? And so I think that's a real fascinating part of group that I haven't really got to work with yet, since I haven't really worked with any groups. But that would be interesting to kind of see how that process unfolds. And then in the same creation of group identity, just being able to transfer that responsibility of healing over to the group itself would be another fascinating one that I want to play around with a little bit, because cause I was a swim coach again for like about a 10-year span, and a lot of times depending on which groups you're working with, you can step back a little and allow them to kind of take ownership of it. But a lot of the groups I did work with were younger, so I needed to be present, like from ages 10, sometimes 8 years and 9 years of age to like 13. So like when you get to those higher groups, you can have them take ownership of the group and make sure they're leaving on time, they're doing the right things, they're leading the lanes. But yeah, so being able to make sure the group is functioning in a healthy manner and everyone's getting what they need, but also that I'm allowing the accountability to be transferred into theirs. That'd be interesting to kind of develop a little more. Future areas. So one of the goals for myself is I want to start participating in my own counseling. I did it a while ago, and it was years back, but just the more that I'm starting to do it with work with clients, I want to create a healthy practice. And I don't know if I want to do it like to where it's like going to the gym where you're always going to counseling, but I definitely want to re-explore the relationship now that I know more about it, and kind of see what I can get from it, especially with the amount of openness that I think I would be bringing in and awareness I'd bring into it. But I think one thing so that it is a step I'm taking right now, and I'm reaching out to different low cost different agencies in my area to see if I can get that. And I think one of the things that I can really work on there is my conflict avoidant history, and also the skills to develop a little bit more assertiveness if I need to go into that gear. Um, some other options that Corey brought up is like you can always join a group, right? And in that aspect, you can kind of learn firsthand the benefits from seeing confrontation, the things that I might be afraid of, or seeing the group leader deal with some of those situations, so I can, when I have it modeled, I have more of a picture of a blueprint and a map in my head about, oh, that's how you do it. And then experiential training workshops. I think getting on the web and just looking up and networking. I'm in a Facebook group for local therapists here where I get a lot of referrals and make referral requests. And there's always like different parts of like, hey, there's a supervision group or consultation group and this type of group. So I think that would be a great place to kind of learn and find additional mentors. That's what I was building towards. And if nothing else, just the internet is at our access now, and it's at our fingertips. And there's so much information that I think I mean, it's a disservice not to use that as a thing. Or I think you have to be really careful with like people just jumping in all in on this AI and like the Chat GPT stuff. But as a starting point, it could be. It's kind of like where Wikipedia used to be, where it was like, oh, you can't go to Wikipedia, but now it's like kind of where people would go to like get a launch point of a certain topic. I think you could use those types of technologies to get you started in the right direction, or at least get some ideas. But those are some of the things that I think I could be doing to help make me stronger as a group leader and group therapist. And those are the references that I used here. And I think that's it. All right. All right, cool. Bye.